Okay, well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just got done reading the patch notes for a second time. It looks like we have probably the biggest meta shakeup in the history of PoE, perhaps, and my mind is exploding. There's so many changes, so many game systems have been modified, so many reward types have been moved around. We've got buffs, we've got nerfs. I think we are looking at what's going to be a few weeks of chaos. So, what's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video we are talking about the 3.23 Atom Bomb patch notes. Let's go. This video is going to be a bit of a ramble, so strap in. I'm going to try to keep this relatively short because I have a lot of theory crafting to do, but I want to talk about a few of the things that changed majorly going into 3.23, some of the things that didn't change majorly, and some of the things that I'm very, very excited about. Let's start with an easy one. Ultimatum is back. We've been wanting Ultimatum back for a while. They said they rebalanced uniques, they rebalanced the rewards. We have what looks to be some very juicy nodes on the Atlas passive tree. So Ultimatum is exciting. We're not really going to know how good it is until we get our hands on it, but I'm very, very much looking forward to Ultimatum. It was one of my favorite mechanics, so very hyped to get started there. Let's jump right into the lab rework. Enchants have been removed from the game in their entirety. No more helmet enchants, no more boot enchants, belts, gloves, they're all gone. Many of the effects of helmet enchants have been moved to what's called transfigured gems, which is similar to what an alt quality gem is, which has also been removed, in that it changes how the skill functions. But the goal of GGG with transfigured gems was to really modify the way the gem plays. For example, the one that everybody's talking about is falling zombies. There is a version of the raised zombie gem that causes zombies to fall from the sky, killing them on impact and dealing area damage. This is almost certainly going to result in some very funny cast while channeling, cast on crit setups, but effectively it has changed the power level of every skill in the entire game. Helm enchants for some builds were 40% increased damage, for some they were increased AoE, but some had build enabling effects that were massive damage, or perhaps massive defense, or in some other way massively affected your build. We'll get into all three. Number one, things like Tornado Shot additional projectile. This has been moved into the core gem. This somehow is a buff to Tornado Shot. I did not see this coming, but you lose the original base quality that you get from a gem, like 10 or 20% increased damage, and now you get some other new effect. Almost every single skill got a new effect, and many of them were just taken from the helmet enchant. So something like Spark, it also had additional projectiles as a helmet enchant. Now you get 2 from the base gem. However, you are losing the base quality of the gem, which was projectile speed. So every gem is getting what seems to be, let's call it an early game buff. Now, you're not going to have quality on your gem on League Start, and we'll get into the effects on gem quality in a little bit, but you're not going to have quality on League Start, which means you're not going to get these effects right away, but you'll probably get them sooner than you would have gotten a lab enchant. Also, you don't need to base your helmet around getting the lab enchant now, which for a lot of builds was a big problem. Number one, my Cobra Lash build, the +3 chains was so big, I was telling people to get it as soon as you got to maps. Get the +2 version if you can. Now, you don't have to rush for that enchant. You do have to rush for GCPs or buying the gem though, which could be expensive. We'll get into that. So what appears to be buffs across the board for items really is an end game nerf, but an early game buff. Now this is going to be different for every gem, of course, but it appears that the generic effect that's going to be happening across the board is early game buffs and end game nerfs, which I actually really like. More skills being viable on lower budgets, I think, is a good thing, and getting a helm enchant can be pretty expensive. Lab runners are charging more than ever. I paid, I think, 4 divines for an off-meta lab enchant last league. It'll be nice to not have to have that expense on a build. So some other knock-on effects of the enchants being removed are things like boot enchants. Boot enchants were not necessarily build enabling, but very powerful in certain setups. So a totem build that used critical strike chance, you could use the 120% increased crit if you haven't crit recently, because your totems are critting and not you. Losing 120% crit is like losing a juiced up diamond flask. Some other things like move speed were just really nice to have. Some people relied on the stun immunity, so that is a bit of a nerf coming on boot enchants. It'll be nice to not have to fish for them though. So decent bit of a nerf there. I'd say like a 5% player power nerf by taking that away at the top end. Also, something that pretty much only impacted truly 1% players was the belt enchant. Now, I used these super rarely. I pretty much only use them if I happen to find a good belt that already had an enchant on it, which was very rare. So this won't really impact me. But again, at the top end, this is another, 3 to 5% player power nerf. And lastly, gloves. Glove enchants could be really strong. And I actually had a plan to build around a glove enchant going into this league, but we'll table that in case the enchant ever comes back. Glove enchants are not super powerful, and most people didn't even really notice their impacts, but some of them, like the one that creates a mirrored copy of you, was really useful. So small nerf there at the top end, but again, it won't impact most players. Okay, let's talk about GCPs, Gem Cutter Prisms. This is an item that allows you to put increased quality onto a gem up to a maximum of 20. And now quality on gems is way more powerful than it's ever been before. This means finding a gem with 10 quality on it in the early league, which used to be just about worthless or worth half of a GCP, is now going to be worth possibly 5, 10, 20C for a decently meta item. Folks are going to be really looking for quality on their gems early. And because you can't flip your gems, you're either going to have to spend 20 or buy a gem that already has some on it. This is going to create a massive market for Gem Cutters Prisms. All right, so how are we going to get Gem Cutter Prisms? There's two really good farming methods for GCPs in PoE right now. Both of them will not be accessible super early, but once you get to tier 16 maps, you'll be able to farm these pretty easily. The number one way is altar farming. The Searing Exarch has a up to 3.2% chance to drop an additional GCP. In my experience, this is fairly common. So it's about 6 times less common than the Chaos Orb one, but you see the Chaos Orb one all the time. So GCPs, you're going to be able to farm a significant number of these once you get to red altars. The second way to do it is going to be in the cemetery map. The Union card, when you collect 7 of them, drops 10 GCPs. Cemetery and Graveyard both have this. This card is super common and might even be worth rushing to farm. So keep an eye out on Cemetery early on. The Divination card is an area level of 1, which means you can farm these as soon as you get to Cemetery maps. If Cemetery is a tier 1, you can farm it in tier 1s. So let's take a look at some of these divine font options that have been added. Transform a skill gem to be a random transfigured gem of the same color. So basically, if you have an int gem, you can put it in here and turn it into a transfigured int gem. This is going to be a way for the economy to just get a flood of random transfigured gems. If you're a lab runner, you're not necessarily going to be farming a specific one, but you're just going to be farming transfigured gems and hoping they're worth something. Number 2, we have transform a skill gem into a random transfigured version. This seems a lot more powerful, so if you wanted transfigured tornado shot, you put a tornado shot gem in and you get a random version. I think Greg said that there could be up to 2 versions right now for one gem and no more than that. So you have a pretty good chance of getting the one you want. Adding quality to a gem, this is going to be super nice early, but in the end game that'll fall off. And then sacrifice a gem to gain total experience. This is a Faceter's Lens. We've had this in the game for a while. This is really, really strong early to get a ton of experience onto things like Awakened Gems, Empowers, Enhances, Enlightens. And speaking of that, you can actually get Empowers, Enhances, and Enlightens from the lab now, from this font. One of the options is to create one of those. Let's talk about a few uniques before we get into the reveal page. Gamble Sprint, this is kind of funny. We have gain a random movement speed modder when you're hit. We have gain a random movement speed modifier when you are hit from 40% reduced to 100% increased. For a regular build, this is a nightmare. 40% reduced movement speed compared to like your average boots is like basically getting your kneecaps knocked off with a baseball bat. But 100% increase is insane. So Juggernaut and Trickster are going to be the only ones to use this with their cannot go below base movement speed. These are kind of funny. I don't know how strong they'll be though. Next, we have Ichel's Temptation Gold Ring. This is effectively Ventur's round 2 with a million rolls. We have no idea how high or low these rolls go, but the maximum quality is 200%. So normally you can get 20%, so you can get 10 times the quality effect. That means you're going to be able to turn things like all res and life and attack and cast speed and multi into massive, massive numbers. A good roll on something like this is going to be a mirror. a bad roll is going to be a vendor. I'm really looking forward to seeing what these total rolls are and what we can actually juice this ring to, because it's potentially really, really strong. Another unique that I'm super excited about is Replica Covenant. So we can take a quick look at these numbers. We looked at these on stream last night, but we'll look again here for the video. So an added cold gem at level 20 is 152 to 228. If we do added cold at level 29, which is what we get, it goes up to 528. So a level 29 added cold is approximately 2.2 times the added cold of the regular version, and then awakened added cold, we'll just use the level 5, goes up to 282. So it's about twice an awakened added cold. Of course, you lose the +1, but that is a massive, massive amount of flat damage. What skill in this game desperately needs flat damage? Herald of Ice. This chest may make it possible for me to play a Herald of Ice auto bomber again. Herald of Ice is one of my favorite skills in the entire game, and it has been left by the wayside. It did get some AoE with its new quality, and hopefully there's a transfigured version that does something cool, but Replica Covenant is going to be really strong for cold builds, which I love, and may enable the Herald of Ice auto bomber playstyle. So very excited about this. Let's jump into the official trailer page. There's some cool stuff in here. I'm really excited for the look of this league. I think it looks and feels awesome. I love this enchanted forest look. I think the vibe is very, very strong. We get new ascendancy classes. That's crazy. These ascendancy classes have a lot of things that we can't really test or know what's best yet. Things like tinctures, we have an idea of how strong these are, but we don't really know how good they're going to be. You know, so a 75% increased effect of tinctures, we don't really know how strong that'll be. But what we do know is that we can use 2 tinctures in your 2nd and 4th slot to give you a Pathfinder type effect to your 3 flasks. This is similar to like a Balbala style, shout out Captain Lance, where you only use 3 flasks and then you can basically keep those up all the time. Now, I don't see any reason why we couldn't use a micro distillery flask with this. We'll have to see if tinctures count as flasks for that purpose. But if so, that'll give us an even bigger buff to the effect of our flasks. And this is not magic flasks, this is all flasks. So we could potentially be looking at a scenario where we have over 100% increased effect on something like a Progenesis, which is absolutely insane. So we'll have to see what the interactions are capable of there. Things like bark skin, it looks really cool. It appears to be sort of an armor and evasion guard skill. When you get hit, your armor goes up. When you don't get hit, your evasion goes up. So that looks pretty cool. And then again, chance to avoid ailments. This is not great because you pretty much have to get freeze immunity anyway. So if you only have some uptime on your avoid ailments, it's going to feel pretty bad. And then we have things like this. There's some uniques. There's this note here. It seems like GGG wants us to not use gems, which I find very interesting, but some of these are very, very powerful. 25% increased max life if you have equipped gloves with no socketed gems. Gems are pretty important, but I'm sure some folks are going to find ways to make this useful. Immediate thought from this is defenses from equipped body armor are doubled if it has no socketed gems. Calm's chest doesn't have any gems, and then the boots increase move speed if you have boots with no socketed gems. Those both inherently are going to get this buff, so if you're using those, you might want to use Oath of the Magi. These tinctures look pretty incredible. This is a mini headhunter effect, and then stun on full life. One of the other ones that we saw was all damage can poison and all damage can ignite. Those are incredibly powerful. All damage can ignite is usually reserved for Elementalist. Now any build can get it, so look to Chieftain to get some really, really cool explode ignite builds. I'll be coming out with at least one of those this league for sure. I'll be honest, the Warlock I don't love. I don't love the having to buy things to summon in maps. I'm already not really a minion player, so I don't know how excited I'm going to be about any of this stuff, but Sanguimancy is actually pretty cool. This is like a better version of blood magic that then has some other support. So gain life instead of max ES from equipped armor items. That includes things like a hubris circlet. So you lose, I think it's around 500 life at level 90, but then you gain the potential of like an 800 flat life chest, which is absolutely bananas. 400 life helmet, 400 life shield. Really going to be enabling some life stacking. Keep an eye on this for potential Righteous Fire builds. Now that Righteous Fire is based purely off of your life and not off of the gem level. So the Wildwood Primalist, it appears that these charms are effectively giving you some power from ascendancies and combining 2 of them onto an item that you can socket into a tree, which is effectively a second ascendancy tree. So Might of the Bear gives you an extra backpack, which you have to click on to open. That looks not great. I don't love the idea of having to open another inventory, but whatever, we won't worry about that right now. This gives you 3 more ascendancy nodes that are effectively going to give you other ascendancy nodes. Movement speed cannot be modified to below base value. That's from the Juggernaut. Melee has a chance to fortify. That's a pseudo version from Champion. Movement speed per frenzy charge comes from Raider. Less area damage from hits comes from Saboteur. So these are all very, very powerful kind of nerfed version of ascendancy nodes that you get to just add to your character for free. You already get to be an occultist. You already get to be a raider, but now you get to be a raider that has some of the occultist's power from getting the explode. It's only 14%, but it still explode. So this is maybe one of the biggest power buffs we've ever seen. This, to me, I think is stronger than Crucible Trees because you get to have 3 of these. So that is 6 nerfed ascendancy nodes just added to your character. This power is going to be insane. I can't wait to see all these charms. I'm going to be playing almost exclusively the Wildwood Primalist. Super, super excited for this. So we saw that Ultimatum was back. We have Transfigured Gems here. None of these are super exciting to me, but every active skill gem is going to be getting one version of this. So here's an example, Frost Bomb of Instability. This takes away the cooldown and adds a cast time to Frost Bomb, which means it's just a regular castable skill now with this version. That's pretty exciting. We also have the Falling Zombies that we talked about. So there's going to be so much potential for Transfigured Gems, but we'll have to see the whole list before we know the true power of Transfigured Gems. So that's going to be it from me. Arrow in his robe is signing out. I'm going to go do some theory crafting. We're going to be streaming in a little bit. More theory crafting on stream today. I'm super excited for this week. I'm going to go take a shower and think about some of these changes. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me, you can like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support me even more, you can come over to the Twitch and drop a Twitch Prime over there. Hand over those Bezos bucks. I appreciate each and every single one of you for being along with me on this journey. 3.23 is going to be super exciting. We're gonna have a lot of fun this week getting ready for the league. So I will see you on the stream. And as always, take care.